Nas wasted no time in firing back at Jim Jones after his attempt to clown Nas completely backfired. So the whole convo of Nas versus Jim Jones came about after Jim popped up on the Joe and Jada podcast, talking real bold. Jim said he used to be a super Nas fan, but now he thinks his own catalog, his Billboard run, and his relevance with the younger crowd outshines Nas completely.
If you want to go to the Billboard entries, pull up Nas Billboard entries. He's your son.
No, but he knows.
My son can't tell you one Nas record.
And social media lost it to the point where the whole hip-hop culture tuned into the convo and jumped in to defend Nas's name. But it's funny how far this came if you think about the fact that the entire Jim Jones versus Nas scenario came back to life thanks to a snippet from the Don't Quote Me podcast from a few weeks back. A 22-year-old college student from New Jersey claimed Jim Jones had more influence on his generation than Nas. The clip made waves across social media and reignited the generational debate in hip-hop. This is what was said during the session.
Pop Champagne, Summer in Miami, that's a classic.
If I Rule the World, how's that comparable to those songs you just said?
I'm 22. Every Nas song that my man's MJ played, we said we heard that from what, Dub?
2K.
2K. Those songs are in the video game.
Okay.
I have never in my life said at a party, yo, throwing that Nas right now. If you did top 3 influential people regarding dressing,
and that right there made Jim respond on the Joe and Jada podcast. He was fair though, and he said that he himself once idolized Nas, but over time carved out his own lane. So now we're here again, and the Nas versus Jim Jones beef is well and truly alive. But this ain't their first clash. If you've been outside long enough, you remember the mid-2000s tension when Dipset was rolling with Jay-Z and Rockefeller during that peak Nas versus Hob era. It wasn't long before Jim Jones stepped into the crossfire, and what started as admiration turned to rivalry real quick. Jones was out here saying wild stuff in interviews like, F Nas, I don't give a fuck about Nas. He's a rapper that just lost his pizzazz. Meanwhile, Nas was brushing dudes like Jim off without ever getting his hands dirty. No diss track, no name drops, just subtle flexes that made it clear, you not in my league. Here's the video when back in 2005, Nas let his audience speak for him when he brought up Jim Jones's name. Who even is Jim Jones?
These niggas like a Jim Jones, like, I respect you getting your money. You're like, exactly, right?
That energy never really went away. Fast forward to now, and Jim's back pushing the same angle, but louder. And before it could cool off, he doubled down on Shannon Sharpe's Nightcap podcast. Shannon pressed him by asking him if he's really a better rapper than Nas. Jim didn't back down one bit. He said he would run circles around Nas.
I will run circles around Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right now.
That set it off. Shannon threw some shade at Jim with saying that his podcast is the biggest that he's ever been on.
Hey, this is the biggest podcast you ever been on.
Name one Nas record.
This is the biggest podcast you ever been on. Do you know what podcast you've been on better than this one?
As for Nas, he still doesn't want to give this drama any attention or words. He knows that's exactly what Jim Jones wants. Let's be real. Nas been dropping Grammy-winning projects, doing sold-out shows, and collaborating with Hit Boy for the past few years. The work speaks louder than any clapback, and that silence is his clapback. For anyone who knows the culture, Nas staying silent while Jim talks himself into circles is the legacy talking.
Mary has been keeping quiet for years, but now she's finally setting the record straight on rumors that Beyonce blackballed her after stealing her sound. In a new interview with Joe Rogan, Mary finally opened up about Beyonce comparisons. And while she didn't directly accuse her of anything, the way she talked about her career struggles has people putting 2 and 2 together.
What were your true feelings when he ended up giving Beyonce that song that they said that she wanted to talk about?
So the big debate has always been around the similarities between Amerie's hit One Thing and Beyonce's Crazy in Love. And for years, rumors have been floating that producer Rich Harrison originally made Crazy in Love for Amerie, but Jay-Z somehow snatched it for Beyonce. Now Amerie's never been one to throw shade publicly, and on Joe Rogan's show, she said she doesn't know if that story is true. As for the similarities, she chalked it up to the fact that both tracks were produced by Rich Harrison.
Yeah, I didn't hear all these stories.
No, I've heard everything. Are you shitting me?
Okay.
Of course you heard stories.
I really didn't hear the stories about that particular song. No, I didn't hear it. Like, I didn't hear anything about it, but a lot of people would be like, wait, that's not your record? Why did he give that record to you? And I'm like, he never played that record for me. I mean, it's really simple. It's like we did the first album, right? And after the first album came out, it made a lot of noise and people really loved that album.
However, Amory did admit that Jay-Z loved her debut album, which some fans took as confirmation that Jay stole Amory's sound for Beyonce.
And Jay loved the album too. Like Jay-Z loved the first album.
But here's why some fans think Amory's being way too nice and not telling the whole story. Amory's rise happened right around the same time Beyonce was trying to make it solo after Destiny's Child. And yet, it's hard to believe Beyonce ever struggled, but it really wasn't all easy for her to go solo, and she really needed that one big hit to break through. And that hit, of course, turned out to be Crazy in Love featuring Jay-Z. But it didn't take long before people started noticing how both the song and the video for Crazy in Love had some serious similarities to Thing and Crazy in Love were co-written and produced by Rich Harrison, so some similarities were expected. But here's where it gets messier. According to several industry insiders, Beyonce was furious when Jay-Z did a remix of One Thing, and she allegedly convinced him to pull Rich Harrison away from Amory. Jaguar Wright even claimed that after Aaliyah passed, there was an open spot for the next big R&B princess, and Beyonce was determined to claim it and remove all competition. And according to Jaguar, that's the reason Jay-Z stole Rich Harrison from Amory. Now, whether the story is true or not, it was enough for Amory to walk away from the music industry. She realized that to make it, you have to step on others, and she wasn't desperate for fame like some of her competitors. Amory is smart and well-educated, and she knew she didn't need music to be successful. So after leaving the industry behind, she put her English degree to work and focused on writing. In 2017, she became a best-selling author with the book Because You Love to Hate Me, and later started her own book club. And Amory recently opened up about all this in an interview with Tamron Hall, and she talked about how she found success and fulfillment outside of music. Amory said she got into music to create, but quickly saw that as a woman in the industry, there were expectations that had nothing to do with the art.
I mean, you have so many female artists, and you will see a lot of female artists get, for instance, lots of advertisements, and they'll be on certain magazines, and so they have a certain thing that men don't have. But a lot of people who make a lot of the decisions in the industry are men, and that's not necessarily a bad thing always, but when people come in with what they expect of women, it's very much like sing it like I told you, do it like you know what I mean?
Yeah, sing it like I told you.
And so when you write your own music and you have your own vision, I think it can be a little jarring for some people. And for me, I never went into it to just do the magazine stuff. Actually, that was the stuff I just was like, you have to do this in order to create.
Still, Amory made it clear that she has no regrets about walking away from the industry.